You're listening to the Small and Supercharged podcast with Ria Freeman, episode 118. Welcome to this week's episode with me. It is a solo show and it's about, are you sharing or are you stealing? I want to just say before we get into this, I'm obviously not a solicitor. I help people with their social media, with building brands online, with building brands offline and promoting themselves better on a shoestring. As you know, I am not a solicitor and therefore everything in here it's not legal advice, but they are things that I have heard a lot. I've heard a lot of confusion around these points, and I hope I'm able to offer a little bit of clarity around it and also give you a direction to how to find more and just make you consider whether you're stealing or sharing when you post content on your social. So just a little disclaimer there, but I've just been down a 2-hour long rabbit hole getting into the minutiae of things, which hasn't massively helped. But so I've brought it back and I'm talking about things that we all see a lot on social, and some are right and good and some are not right and they are definitely not good and they could actually land people in a lot of trouble. So that is what I'm going to talk about today. Are you sharing or are you stealing? So this is obviously connected to copyright. As I said, refer to point 1, not a solicitor. But do go and have a bit of a Google about that. There are some really, really good articles about copyright online from lawyers, solicitors, all sorts actually. I read one from the government. There's all sorts of stuff on copyright online. So have a good read of that. But I'm going to kind of relate it back to some of the stuff that we see a lot in our world, especially on social media. And one particular thing that there's lots of things that have brought this to my attention. I know photographers have a really, really tricky time with copyright, but also artists do as well, and illustrators. And it was actually a few weeks ago now that the lovely Emily Cole, I'm sure you know Emily Cole, aka Emily Cole Illustrations, who draws the amazing horses with a really cool, witty captions and slogans that I have got. I'm just looking up now and I've got the piebald, skewbald and poobald card looking down at me, and I've got my Emily Cole planner. So I'm very pro Emily Cole, and I obviously have the pleasure of working with her. But it came to my attention a few weeks ago that a big Facebook page, and it was a really significant Facebook page, had used one of her images. They'd used one of her images as a post, as a main feed post. They hadn't credited her. Actually, they credited somebody else. But the bigger problem was they had literally lifted one of her images, saved it, and posted it as their image. And I felt awful for her because obviously, I can't draw. I'll level with you. I can't draw. I actually followed her. She did a sort of draw with me guide during lockdown, and I followed that and actually got quite a good result. But keep in mind, I was following tips aimed at a 5-year-old and the result was okay. So I can't draw, but I know how much time and energy and effort goes into every single one of Emily's drawings, and if you have seen what she creates, you will see it, not just the idea forming, but the actual drawing as well. So then to have someone lift that, save it as their own, publish it on their page as essentially as their own for where the kind of credit goes, where the interaction goes, where the engagement goes, is wrong. And I thought, let's give people the benefit of the doubt, because I've seen a lot of people just blatantly do this with different things, and I don't believe it's deliberate at all. Sometimes I think it is, actually. Let's rewind. Sometimes I think people just don't care and go, oh, well, it's fine because. But I think a lot of the time people don't realise that they're actually breaking, they're infringing someone's copyright, and actually take it to another extreme and they're actually compromising their livelihood because they're giving away stuff for free that other person has paid for in time, energy, expertise, and everything else. So I thought I would just cover this in the basic terms, and I don't mean that to be patronising to you. I mean it to be patronising to myself, really, because I am not a solicitor, but I have spoken to a lot of people who have got issues with people just ripping off their content, and I can see how it makes them feel. And this goes from people being really cross, quite rightly, to people being really upset and feeling disheartened and wondering why they bother. You think about photographers who have kit worth tens of thousands of pounds to have someone just rip off their picture, lift it, use it as they like without even paying for it. So the amount that they're being charged, and this happens quite a lot with event photography, people are being charged whatever for that picture of them jumping or something like that. And instead of doing that, they just copy and paste it from the website, copyright symbols intact, all over the shop, and post it everywhere. And it might be that they didn't want to pay the, I don't know, £10, £12, whatever. Fine. Absolutely fine. Don't pay it then. But don't steal that person's work either. That's the key, really. And I think that's what we need to really look at. So let's just rewind a bit. Basically, the person who has created the work owns it. And that means they take the picture, it's theirs. They draw it, it's theirs. They are the creator and they own it. It is their work. And this is an interesting point as well, because even if you buy, let's get back to the photographer example. Let's say you buy a print of you jumping. That does not mean that you are entitled to use that image however you like. You have bought a copy of it, but you haven't bought the rights to use that image however you like. As with a drawing here, again, I'm looking at this lovely card by Emily. I've bought that card for £3, something like that. That doesn't mean that that drawing is now mine and I can do whatever I like with it. It means I have bought that thing. I have bought that card, that print, that whatever. It doesn't mean I have got the right to use it however I like. And I think that's really important, because if you have a photo shoot, let's go back to the photo. I'm going to move between photo and Illustrator quite a lot, because I think these are the examples that I'm seeing a lot and that I want to talk to you about, because I think that in the industry we're in, we have people who are very creative, which is amazing. We have these people who can draw beautifully and can take photographs beautifully. And their content is shareable. It is going to get engagement. It's going to do really great things. But it needs to do the great things for the people that created it, not just people that want to take it. So go back to the photographer example. You have a photo shoot done, or you buy an image. What does that mean? You need to look at what the conditions are for the purchase of that image. How are you allowed to use it? Are you allowed to use that image however you like? Are you allowed to use that image for social media? Are you allowed to have an 8x4 print of that image stuck on your wall? Are you allowed to use it for commercial purposes? Are your sponsors allowed to use it to do an advert in a magazine? I don't know the answer to those questions, because I don't know what your terms and conditions say. What I do know is you need to look into it. And if you can't face reading terms and conditions, and I get you there, contact the photographer. Honestly, they don't bite, they're very tame, and they just want to know how their photography is being used. And you need to make sure you've got the right permissions for it. So, for example, one thing could be that they're happy for you to use it on your social, on your website or whatever. But if a sponsor wants to use it for an advert, they're going to need it in a different format to social, because it's print versus a lower res version for online. But also it's commercial then. It's gone up a step. It's not just you using it to promote yourself and you using it to promote what you do, or that you've had a really great ride on your horse, or it's competed well. Someone else is using that image that photographer took to potentially make massive gains for them, for something that the image wasn't intended for. And that's in the best possible way. I don't mean, so it shouldn't be used. Brilliant. But it should have the right permission to use it. It should be credited correctly. But the permission, the credit is actually just a side note. The permission is what you need. That is the absolute key here, because crediting somebody when you have stolen their work is not enough. saying, oh, I like this picture, so I put it on my social media. I put it basically as mine because I've posted it as original content, but all credit to X. It is not enough without the permission. You have got to have the permission. The permission might be conditional. It might say you can use it however many times you can use it. A credit might be a condition of allowing you to use it. Absolutely. The people who create the work can put these conditions in place, and so they blooming well should do, but you need to have the permission. Ideally get that in writing. Well, no, definitely get that in writing, not ideally. It can be done by email, DM, whatever, but make sure that you have that person is happy that you use their image. Because if not, you could be fined. You could receive a cease and desist letter that asks you to remove it, and you could be fined for usage of their image in the wrong way. And I'll tell you now that if you bought the image for a tenner and you then decided not to buy that image and use the image anyway, it's going to cost you a lot more than a tenner to use it in the way that you have. And the thing is as well, if you think the image is good enough to use, pay for it. Or don't pay for it, but don't use it. Don't go in this weird middle ground where you're happy to steal it, but not use it. Getting a bit ranty now. So what we also need to think about is what, that's theft. Also, and I know how, go back to Emily, I know how that image was stolen. Somebody saved the image from her Facebook page. It may have been her Instagram, but I think it's Facebook. Saved the image from her Facebook page, saved it into their computer, and then they created the post and they inserted that image into that post and they posted it. Now, the great thing is with social media is that there are inbuilt tools inside the platforms that allow us to share content correctly. Now, this seems to be the general way. If you want to share content and you want to stay within the rules, you use the inbuilt tools, not any third-party apps. You use the inbuilt tools to share the content because it will always link back to the creator. So there's a beautiful photograph that a photographer you love has taken, and it's just lovely. And you want to share that with your friends, let's say, on Facebook. And there is the share option underneath that image that will allow you to do that. When you press that, you can choose where you share it, but also it means that the original post is credited to the correct person in the correct way. That is not the same as saving to your own computer and posting it on your own computer. It's completely different. And this is what we should be looking to use the correct tools. With Instagram, it's got the little paper aeroplane symbol underneath the image that will allow you to share to stories. Now, if the person has got the account has to be set to public to allow you to do that. So if they've got a personal account and they set it to private, you won't be able to share. That is fine. Do not share it. Don't be screenshotting and sharing it. Don't share it. If they have actually turned off the ability to share, that's on them. Don't share it. Similarly with Facebook, in the privacy settings, you can prevent people from sharing your content. If you are unable to share someone's content, don't think, oh, well, I'll just take it anyway. Don't do that. You can contact them and ask them to make that post shareable. That's something I've seen quite a bit. If someone's like promoting a job or something and they want to share it with their friends and the privacy settings are preventing that from happening, I've seen people send messages or send pop comments below saying, oh, please make this shareable, and they have done. Fine, great thing, because you're essentially asking permission then. You're asking them to upgrade what they're doing. But don't just go, oh, well, I wanted to share it and I couldn't, so I'll just take it. That's the stealing thing we're talking about. That is stealing. So use the inbuilt features that allow correct sharing, please, because that means that the creator is getting that credit. And although we have said credit isn't enough on its own, when you're using these platforms, the sharing functionality is there so you can share things that you love with the people that you think are interested, but without ruining someone's work and without compromising their livelihood. Because if you're just taking all their work for free and they're not even getting the credit, that's not good. it's blooming annoying when something happens in life that we don't get the credit for when it was our doing, and it's positive, clearly. Really annoying. So now imagine if that was your livelihood. Now imagine you've written something and someone just copies and pastes the whole blog post and shoves it up as theirs. You don't get any credit, but people think it's brilliant. Well, that's also a copyright infringement issue. But it's not right, and it is against the law to be stealing people's work. And I don't want you to be stealing people's work thinking you're doing a good thing, because you're really not. But there are ways to share it that help the person that has created it, and that's why we need to be using these inbuilt share tools. I know you can get various different apps, particularly for things like Instagram, that allow you to regram people's content, but this isn't linking back to the creator. By all means, it's a good tool, but you need to be asking permission before you do it, because you are still taking that content and you will repost it as your own content, even if you credit the creator. It's not the same. It's not the same as sharing up to your stories, and then when someone taps on it, they go to the original post. It isn't the same at all. So if you are saving a post and reposting it as your post, that needs permission. It doesn't matter whether you have credit, you've given credit to the creator, or you haven't. It doesn't matter if you don't have permission. The permission is what we need to be looking at here. The inbuilt sharing tools are really, really useful. Really useful. Giving credit when you have got permission is a good thing to do, and I think the right thing to do. The exceptions, I guess, to this would be if you have purchased an image, probably more for commercial purposes, or actually not. If you've purchased an image that says that you are able to use it however you like as part of the terms of that purchase, then you don't need to credit if that's what the terms and conditions say. But you need to make sure you're following those. You need to make sure that you are not crediting. So you are crediting if that is what you want to do. Of course, even if someone hasn't asked for a credit, you can still give one, especially if you're looking to support that person in what they're doing. And that's all, that's brilliant. That's a really good thing to do. But you have got the permission there when you bought it that allows you to do that. So what I really want to say is that we need to be more aware of this. We need to be really thinking about the stealing versus sharing. It's not to scare you. This podcast, nothing I do on this podcast is to ever scare you. It's to make you a bit more aware, because I'm in a really privileged position that I get to see both sides of the coin quite often. So I get to see someone saying, well, I just shared it because it was brilliant. And I also get to see the creator going, well, I really appreciate you sharing it, but you haven't shared it in the right way. You haven't given me the credit. It's not linked to my whatever. So actually, from my point of view, you've gained massively and I haven't gained at all. And it's taken me years to get to the level that would allow me to do that. But in fact, if it had been shared correctly, everybody would have been thrilled. A lot of it, I really feel, is miscommunication or non-communication. If you see something that you love and you want to save it and repost it on your own feed, particularly with Instagram, because obviously you can share on Facebook much more easily, ask. When I know we've done podcasts about user-generated content before, and the same applies, and I have to say the amount of times you get a no are just minimal, but that doesn't exclude you from having to do that step. Even if you expect the answer to be yes, you still need to take that step. You still need to ask. You still need to get the permission. If they don't get back to you, take that as no permission. Don't think, oh, well, I've asked them, but they haven't replied, so I'm sure it's fine. No, it's not. Take that as non-permission. Take that as you haven't been granted permission to use that content. You can ask them again. You can email them. You can do whatever you like. But if they haven't got back to you, take that as they're not giving you permission. Don't just assume. It's important that we do this, because if we essentially rip off our photographers who take beautiful pictures of us and help capture memories, if we rip off illustrators who draw things that make us smile and laugh, if we just take these things and we rip them off and it means they don't get paid for their work, they don't even get the credit, let alone the payment for their work, we're going to have less and less of these people around to help us capture these moments and to help us smile and laugh or send a great card to a friend or capture a picture, thinking of, our industry, of us and our beloved horse doing something, or us on a special family photo shoot. If we're just taking stuff and not paying for it, it's not going to be there. So we need to do these things. We need to make sure we are sharing in the correct way. We are paying if we want to use them in a way that isn't sharing. We need to make sure we're doing this to protect our industry, to protect the creatives in our industry. And I know that this sharing versus stealing, it expands to more than just photography and more than just illustrations, but this is what I'm seeing a lot of at the moment. And I get a lot of people message me about this, or I get a lot of it flagged in my groups, and kind of it's become something that I can't ignore anymore. And not that I was ignoring it before, but it's something that has become so loud to me that I felt hopefully a podcast would help to educate people, because as I said, I don't believe it's coming from the place of, oh well, screw it, it's mine. I believe it's coming from a place of not perhaps understanding what it means when you buy an image for use on social media, what the limits of that are, or what the limits of it when you buy a print for your wall, or anything like that, all the way through to, well, I liked it and I've given them credit and that's helping them, but it's not if you don't do it properly. So stealing versus sharing. Sharing, yay. Stealing, definitely nay. But the key is ask permission and do the research. As I said at the top of this podcast, I'm obviously not a solicitor and I'm not an expert in copyright law. And I don't want you to think I am for a second, because that would be wrong. But there is a lot of information online. And my thing would be, what I'm going to give to you as my piece of advice is, if you are unsure, ask the creator. If you can't share it using the tools inside the platform you're on, so a retweet, a share to stories, you need to ask permission. You've got to ask permission, okay? It's really important. I don't want you getting in trouble, and I don't want people getting upset. Basically, I want us all to work together happily. That's what this podcast is largely about. So please just ask permission. If you're not sure, ask permission. Read up on anything that you need to. There is so much information on the internet. As always, as I say, if you're looking on the internet, make sure you're going to a good source. Make sure you're going to someone who knows what they're talking about, a solicitor or something like that. And there's loads of that online. As I said, the government have got information about IP as well, copyright, and it's important. So thank you so much for listening to this podcast, Sharing or Stealing. If you listened and you liked it, which I'm kind of hoping you did, I would love you to screenshot and share to stories. I'd love to have your input on this. I'd love to know if you've had any experiences. Obviously, I don't want you naming names because that's not cool either. But I would really be interested in any of your experiences that you're happy to share, or any advice that you have around this, particularly if you are a creative and you have had these issues too. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you always for listening. I appreciate every single listen, every single download, and every single share to stories too. If you would like a bit more information around how to develop your business or brand, particularly on digital and on social media, don't forget that there is the free Small and Supercharged Facebook group, which is just the most incredible place to be. It's the loveliest community. Of course, I have got the 2 paid-for groups too, for people who really want to grow and expand and learn all the things. But the Small and Supercharged community is also incredible. You can have a look and you can find that over on Facebook by searching Small and Supercharged. Thanks so much for listening, and we will catch up next week.